Hi guys, welcome back to Nerd Talk. I am really excited to have you here, so sit back, relax, and get ready for our 18th journey together. In this video, journey deep into the hidden world of genetics and explore how DNA, genes, chromosomes, evolution, and environmental influences work together to shape every living organism, revealing the extraordinary science behind human traits, diseases, inheritance, identity, and the future of life itself. The code of life. Long before humanity built telescopes to study distant galaxies or microscopes to explore invisible worlds, people noticed something fascinating about life itself. Children resembled their parents. Certain families shared similar eye colors, facial structures, voices, talents, and even diseases. Ancient civilizations could observe inheritance, but they could not explain it. Hidden deep inside every living organism was an invisible system carrying instructions from one generation to the next, a biological language older than civilization itself. Today, science calls this language genetics. Inside every cell of the human body lies an extraordinary molecule known as DNA. If stretched out from a single cell, this microscopic thread would extend nearly 2 meters long, yet it folds perfectly inside the nucleus of the cell. DNA stores information using only 4 chemical letters, but from these 4 letters emerges every detail of life: the growth of a human embryo, the rhythm of the heartbeat, the color of skin, and the development of the brain, capable of questioning the universe itself. Genetics is the study of how this information is stored, copied, inherited, and expressed. The story of genetics is not just the story of biology. It is the story of identity, ancestry, evolution, disease, survival, and the future of medicine. By decoding DNA, humanity has begun reading the instruction manual of life itself. Scientists can now trace ancient migrations across continents, identify inherited disorders before symptoms appear, and even edit genes using advanced technologies. What was once hidden in mystery is slowly being revealed, letter by letter, transforming the way humanity understands life. What is genetics? Imagine opening a gigantic instruction book containing every detail needed to build and maintain a living organism. This book would describe how cells grow, how organs function, how energy is produced, and how traits pass from parents to children. Genetics is the science dedicated to understanding this instruction system. It studies heredity, the transmission of biological traits, and variation, which explains why every individual is unique despite belonging to the same species. Some inherited characteristics are visible immediately. Hair texture, eye color, height, skin pigmentation, and facial features often run through families across generations. But genetics goes much deeper than appearance. Hidden within DNA are instructions influencing immunity, metabolism, muscle development, blood chemistry, and even susceptibility to diseases such as diabetes or cancer. In many cases, genes interact with environmental factors like nutrition, pollution, stress, and lifestyle, creating complex outcomes that shape every individual differently. Over the last century, genetics evolved from a small academic field into one of the most powerful sciences in human history. Early researchers studied inheritance using pea plants and family trees. Today, scientists use supercomputers, genome sequencing machines, and artificial intelligence to analyze billions of DNA letters within hours. Genetics now influences medicine, agriculture, forensic science, ecology, and even our understanding of human evolution. Humanity is no longer merely observing inheritance. It is beginning to understand and eventually control it. Genes, the unit of heredity. Deep inside the DNA molecule exist specific sections called genes. These genes are the fundamental units of heredity, carrying precise instructions that guide the construction and operation of living organisms. Each gene functions like a carefully written biological command. Some genes determine visible traits, such as freckles or dimples, while others regulate invisible processes, such as hormone production, oxygen transport, or immune defense. Genes work primarily by directing the production of proteins. Proteins are the true workers of the cell, building tissues, carrying oxygen, transmitting signals between nerve cells, and controlling chemical reactions essential for survival. A single tiny change in a gene can alter the structure of a protein, sometimes producing remarkable effects. One altered gene might cause red hair, while another may increase the risk of inherited diseases such as cystic fibrosis or sickle cell anemia. Although humans possess roughly 20,000 genes, the vast majority are shared among all people on Earth. Yet tiny variations in DNA sequences create the immense diversity seen across humanity. No two individuals, except identical twins, possess exactly the same genome. These genetic differences contribute to individuality, shaping appearance, physiology, disease susceptibility, and even how the body responds to medications or environmental conditions. DNA, the molecular blueprint. DNA, short for deoxyribonucleic acid, is one of the most important molecules in the universe. It acts as the master blueprint of life, storing instructions for building and maintaining every organism on Earth. Found inside nearly every cell, DNA contains information accumulated through billions of years of evolution. Despite its microscopic size, this molecule holds enough data to guide the formation of entire living beings. The structure of DNA resembles a twisted ladder called a double helix. The sides of the ladder consist of sugar and phosphate molecules, while the steps are formed by 4 nitrogen bases: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. These bases pair in a precise manner. Adenine binds with thymine, and cytosine binds with guanine. The sequence of these chemical letters forms a biological code capable of storing enormous amounts of information. What makes DNA extraordinary is not merely its structure, but its ability to store, replicate, and transmit information with astonishing accuracy. During cell division, DNA copies itself so that each new cell receives the same instructions. Across generations, DNA preserves hereditary information while allowing small variations through mutations. These variations fuel evolution and biological diversity, connecting every living organism through a shared molecular language. Levels of genetics. Genetics is not limited to a single molecule hidden inside a cell. It is a vast, interconnected system operating across multiple levels of biological organization. The journey begins deep within microscopic DNA molecules and expands outward through genes, chromosomes, cells, tissues, organs, individuals, families, populations, and ultimately the evolution of species across millions of years. Every level influences the next, creating a chain of biological information that connects all life on Earth. At the molecular level, genetics studies DNA sequences and genes that store hereditary instructions. At the cellular level, it examines how these instructions guide the behavior of living cells. As complexity increases, genetics explains how tissues and organs function, how traits pass through families, and how populations evolve over generations. Tiny molecular changes occurring inside a single cell can eventually shape the future of entire species. Understanding genetics at multiple levels allows scientists to connect invisible molecular events with visible biological outcomes. A single mutation in DNA may alter a protein, affect a cell's behavior, damage an organ system, influence inherited diseases in families, and contribute to evolutionary adaptation within populations. Genetics, therefore, acts as a bridge linking molecules to the history of life itself. DNA, the alphabet of life. At the foundation of genetics lies DNA, the molecule that stores biological information using only 4 chemical letters: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine. These 4 bases act like an alphabet capable of writing the instructions for every living organism. Despite their simplicity, their combinations create the extraordinary complexity of life. Each DNA base bonds with sugar and phosphate molecules to form structures called nucleotides. Billions of these nucleotides join together into long DNA chains, carrying enormous quantities of genetic information. The exact order of the bases determines how proteins are built, how cells function, and how organisms develop from a single fertilized egg. Much like human languages create books from only a few alphabet letters, life creates entire organisms from combinations of A, T, C, and G. Tiny changes in this sequence can produce variations in appearance, influence disease risk, or drive evolution over millions of years. Hidden within these microscopic letters is the complete instruction manual for life.
Genes and protein instructions.
Genes are specific sections of DNA containing instructions for building proteins. Each gene functions like a carefully written biological paragraph within the enormous genetic library stored inside the genome. These instructions determine how cells grow, communicate, repair damage, and perform the countless activities required for life. Proteins are built from amino acids, and the DNA code determines the exact sequence in which these amino acids are assembled. Every group of 3 DNA bases specifies a particular amino acid, allowing cells to translate genetic information into physical biological structures. This molecular translation system forms the foundation of all cellular activity. The proteins produced by genes influence nearly every trait in the human body. Some proteins build muscles and bones. Others transport oxygen and blood, regulate hormones, fight infections, or transmit signals through the nervous system. From heartbeat rhythms to immune responses, proteins carry out the instructions written within genes.
RNA, the messenger molecule.
Although DNA contains the master instructions for life, it rarely leaves the nucleus of the cell. Instead, cells use another molecule called RNA, or ribonucleic acid, to carry genetic messages from DNA to the protein-building machinery of the cell. RNA acts as the communication system, connecting genetic information to biological activity. Messenger RNA, often called mRNA, copies the information stored in DNA and transports it to structures called ribosomes. Here, other forms of RNA help organize amino acids into the precise order needed to construct proteins. This process transforms stored genetic information into living biological structures. The movement of information from DNA to RNA to protein is one of the most important principles in biology. Through this pathway, invisible molecular instructions become muscles capable of movement, neurons capable of thought, and organs capable of sustaining life. Every second, trillions of cells perform this extraordinary process silently within the human body.
Proteomics, the protein world.
Although every cell contains the same genome, different cells produce different sets of proteins depending on their specialized roles. The study of all proteins produced within a cell or organism is called proteomics. Proteins ultimately determine what a cell does and how it behaves. Muscle cells manufacture large quantities of contractile proteins responsible for movement. Skin cells produce keratin to form protective outer layers, while stomach cells generate digestive enzymes to break down food after meals. Each cell type activates only the proteins necessary for its specific function. Proteins are not static structures. Their production constantly changes depending on environmental conditions and the needs of the body. After exercise, muscle cells increase protein synthesis for repair and growth. During infections, immune cells rapidly produce defensive proteins. The body is therefore a dynamic and constantly adapting biochemical system. The human genome. The human genome is the complete set of genetic instructions required to build and maintain a human being. It contains approximately 3.2 billion DNA bases, organized into chromosomes within nearly every cell of the body. If written as text, the genome would fill thousands of books. Surprisingly, only a small fraction of the genome directly encodes proteins. Large portions regulate gene activity, assist cellular processes, or contain repeated sequences whose functions scientists are still trying to understand. The genome is far more complex than researchers originally imagined. The completion of the Human Genome Project marked one of the greatest scientific achievements in history. For the first time, humanity successfully mapped the entire genetic blueprint of its own species, opening new possibilities in medicine, biotechnology, evolutionary biology, and personalized healthcare. Chromosomes, packaging the genome. DNA molecules are incredibly long and must fit inside microscopic cell nuclei. To solve this problem, cells tightly organize DNA by wrapping it around proteins and folding it into compact structures called chromosomes. This packaging system protects genetic material while allowing cells to access genes when needed. Human somatic cells contain 23 pairs of chromosomes for a total of 46. 22 pairs are called autosomes and contain most genetic information. The final pair consists of sex chromosomes, X and Y, which help determine biological sex and carry genes related to reproduction and development. Chromosomes become especially visible during cell division when they condense into distinct X-shaped structures. Accurate chromosome separation is essential because errors can lead to genetic disorders caused by missing, extra, or damaged chromosomes. These microscopic structures therefore play a critical role in heredity and human health. Genes and the environment. For many years, scientists believed genes worked almost like fixed instructions, controlling every aspect of life independently. But modern genetics revealed a far more dynamic reality. Genes constantly interact with environmental influences, such as nutrition, stress, exercise, pollution, infections, temperature, and even social experiences. Life is therefore shaped not only by inherited DNA, but also by the world surrounding the organism. Inside the human body, genes are continuously responding to signals from the environment. Some genes become highly active under certain conditions, while others remain silent. Even identical twins carrying nearly identical DNA can develop different traits, health conditions, or personalities because their environments and experiences gradually influence gene activity differently over time. This interaction between genes and environment creates an incredibly flexible biological system. DNA may provide the blueprint, but environmental conditions help determine how that blueprint is used. Human biology is therefore not controlled by genes alone, but by an ongoing conversation between inheritance and environment occurring every second inside trillions of cells. Multifactorial traits, more than just genes. Many human traits are not controlled by a single gene. Instead, they result from the combined influence of multiple genes, together with environmental factors. These are called multifactorial or complex traits. Characteristics such as height, intelligence, obesity, diabetes, heart disease, and many mental health conditions emerge through this intricate interaction. Body weight provides a powerful example of multifactorial inheritance. Certain genes influence how efficiently the body extracts calories from food, stores fat, or regulates hunger. However, environmental factors such as diet, exercise, sleep, stress, and even intestinal bacteria strongly influence the final outcome. Scientists discovered that the same food may provide different amounts of usable energy in different individuals because gut bacteria vary from person to person. One individual may extract 110 calories from a cookie, while another absorbs only 90 calories from the exact same food. Human biology is therefore far more personalized and dynamic than previously imagined. Osteoporosis, a disease of genes and lifestyle. Osteoporosis demonstrates how both genes and environment contribute to disease. This condition weakens bones over time, increasing the risk of fractures, especially in older women after menopause. Although genetics influences susceptibility, lifestyle factors strongly affect whether the disease develops severely. Several genes regulate bone density, calcium metabolism, and hormonal balance. However, smoking, lack of physical activity, poor nutrition, and calcium deficiency can dramatically worsen bone loss. Weight-bearing exercise and healthy diets, on the other hand, help strengthen bones and reduce risk. This example reveals a crucial principle in genetics. Inherited risk does not guarantee disease. Even when individuals possess genetic susceptibility, environmental choices and healthy lifestyles can strongly influence the final outcome. Genes may load the gun, but environment often pulls the trigger. Genetic determinism. Are we controlled by our genes? The idea that inherited traits are unavoidable is called genetic determinism. According to this belief, genes alone completely dictate intelligence, personality, behavior, disease, and destiny. Modern genetics, however, shows that reality is far more complex. Environmental influences can modify how genes function throughout life. A person may inherit increased risk for conditions such as heart disease or breast cancer, but healthy behaviors, medical monitoring, proper nutrition, and exercise can significantly reduce those risks. Genetic predictions are therefore expressed as probabilities rather than certainties. Understanding the limits of genetic determinism is extremely important for society. Misusing genetics to claim one group is biologically superior or inferior can lead to discrimination and inequality. At the same time, recognizing genetic risks can empower individuals to make healthier lifestyle choices. Genetics should therefore be used to increase understanding, not to limit human potential. Genetics everywhere in human life. The story of genetics is no longer locked inside laboratories or hidden within thick science textbooks. Today, genetics walks beside humanity every single day. It appears in hospitals when doctors study inherited diseases, in crime investigations where DNA identifies suspects, in agriculture where crops are redesigned to survive harsh climates, and even in family homes where people send saliva samples to ancestry companies, hoping to uncover their origins. Genetics has transformed from a mysterious branch of biology into one of the most powerful forces shaping the modern world. Imagine a young woman opening her email and discovering that her DNA carries traces of ancestors from West Africa, Europe, and Asia. At the same time, that same genetic report warns her about possible future risks for diabetes or heart disease. In one tiny saliva sample lies information about both the past and the future. Genetics connects ancient migrations, family histories, and medical predictions into one extraordinary scientific language, written inside DNA. But with this power comes emotion. Genetics inspires hope because it may help cure diseases once considered impossible to treat. It sparks fear because people worry about privacy, discrimination, or misuse of genetic information. Some see it as humanity's greatest scientific revolution, while others wonder whether changing genes could alter nature itself. Genetics is not just science anymore. It has become deeply personal, social, ethical, and global. DNA profiling and forensic science. For centuries, criminals could disappear into crowds with little fear of scientific identification. Fingerprints changed that, but DNA changed everything again. Every strand of hair, every drop of blood, every tiny skin cell carries a unique genetic signature. Modern forensic science uses these invisible codes to identify individuals with astonishing precision. A single DNA sample from a crime scene can connect a suspect to an event decades later. After catastrophic events like terrorist attacks, tsunamis, or plane crashes, DNA profiling becomes a tool of human compassion. Scientists carefully compare DNA from recovered remains with toothbrushes, hairbrushes, and family samples to identify missing victims. In moments where physical recognition becomes impossible, genetics helps families find closure. Behind every DNA match is not just science, but grief, memory, and humanity. DNA profiling has also corrected tragic mistakes in justice systems. Innocent prisoners sentenced decades ago have been released after modern DNA tests proved they were never at the crime scene. Organizations like Innocence Projects use genetic evidence to overturn wrongful convictions. Genetics, therefore, acts not only as a scientific detective, but sometimes as a final voice of truth. Genetics in healthcare and disease. Modern medicine is slowly shifting from treating symptoms to understanding genetic causes. Diseases once viewed as random are now recognized as the result of complex interactions between genes and environment. A mutation in DNA can alter how proteins are built, disrupting entire biological systems. Scientists are beginning to read diseases almost like software errors inside the human body's genetic code. Genetic testing allows doctors to predict risks long before symptoms appear. A person carrying a harmful mutation for Huntington disease may appear healthy for decades, yet their DNA already contains the instructions for future illness. In other cases, gene variants may increase the risk of cancer, Alzheimer's disease, or heart disease. These predictions do not guarantee destiny, but they offer opportunities for prevention, lifestyle changes, and early treatment. Another revolution is pharmacogenomics, the science of tailoring drugs according to genetics. Some people break down medications too slowly, while others process them too quickly. The same medicine that heals one patient may dangerously harm another, depending on their genes. In the future, doctors may prescribe treatments uniquely designed for each individual's genome, creating personalized medicine unlike anything humanity has seen before. Genetics, ecology, and the future of humanity. Genetics does not only shape humans, it influences the entire living world. Scientists now alter crops to produce more vitamins, resist droughts, and survive pests. Golden rice, for example, was engineered to contain high amounts of beta-carotene to help prevent vitamin A deficiency in vulnerable populations. Through biotechnology, humanity has begun redesigning life itself to solve global challenges. At the same time, scientists discovered that humans are ecosystems rather than isolated organisms. Trillions of bacteria live inside the digestive system, on the skin, and even inside the mouth. These microbes influence digestion, immunity, mood, and health. Projects studying the human microbiome reveal that our bodies are deeply interconnected with microscopic life forms that evolved alongside us for millions of years. Yet the future of genetics raises enormous ethical questions. Should humans genetically modify animals? Should genetic information remain private? Could genetic technologies deepen inequality between rich and poor nations? As genome science advances, humanity stands at a crossroads where scientific power must be balanced with wisdom, responsibility, and ethics. Genetics may become one of the defining forces of the future civilization. Thanks a lot for watching. If you're liking the videos, please do like, share, and subscribe.